with the fizz spin soda, because you get a faster initial throw speed, you actually meet your maximum slowdown faster, right? Because when you're Trickster, you start at 96 and then you go down to 92 when you have your knives out. I don't know the exact number, but when you start with the fizz spin soda, like this 96 down to 92 is tied to your how many you're throwing and how fast you're throwing. So if you're throwing, the faster you're throwing, the slower you are. Does that kind of make sense?
Oi, 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 YouTube. It's great to see you today. I hope you've unclenched your jaw, had your water, and caffeinated. I appreciate seeing you guys today. Of course, if you did not know, we do gameplay reviews where you guys can submit your gameplay via our Discord, link in the description. And that's about it. We review it. Every single Tuesday, we do gameplay reviews. And I hear you guys all the time saying, Dylan, I love those gameplay reviews. Where are they at? I need you guys to help me. There were 2 weeks where I didn't have any gameplay review submissions, and that makes it impossible to make the content. So if you guys want the content, help me out. Hop into our Discord and send us some gameplay to review, and I got you. Survivor, killer, doesn't matter. Today's video is a Trickster gameplay review where we talk about the best practices for Trickster. All of that being said, next week, Trickster's Tome, we assume, is coming out, or soon at least, right? And so it's a good idea to get your practice in with the boy himself. That being said, thank you guys for being here. Remember, unclench your jaw, have your water. I'll be praying to the entity to see you in the next video. Don't you dare forget to subscribe.
Oh, that loud. All right, we got the Ironworks McMillan map number 2 for the day. We got the fizz spin soda. So we got a faster throw rate. We're using enduring nurses, no way out. So like effectively no slowdown perks. Can we get a better resolution? 720 crunches the shit out of DVD. Okay, so let's take a look. Let's go back a little bit. Okay, so it seems like maybe we paid a little bit of attention to gens at the beginning. Not awful. Good catch. We are on PC, so I would automatically start with your knives. People don't understand. They will never understand this. Start with your knives, right? And they'll say, well, why? They're right there. I could just M1 them. That's not the point, right? Like, yeah, you could take the path of least resistance, but it's the least effective path. With the knives, so let's put it this way. If you got the M1 on the Nia, you have a 3-second, right? You'd have a 3-second cooldown where you basically stop moving and they get a speed boost for 2 seconds. So they get to make tons of distance. If you use your knives, you take very little speed reduction. At most, you go down to 92% movement speed, and it's only until you switch to your bat. So you would want to use your knives, right? And then switch right to the bat as they get their speed boost, and then get the M1, like, almost immediately after. It's very similar to the Huntress. Like, if you're very close, you would use a Huntress Hatchet, switch to the axe, and then get the M1. It's the same sort of principle. People sort of forget that about Trickster. They go for M1s first and then complain that he's super weak when they could be using the knife. So, like, right here, she's like in the middle of nowhere. Dude, prime target. Pink, 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 pink. I would definitely be just badgering her with knives, especially with the throw speed being higher. There's no reason to M1 here whatsoever. Okay. You still need to stick to your knives. Yeah, I still need to stick to it. Good. I like that you're patient with the knives. It's like one at a time, but the switching back and forth, like, there's no reason to like switch back and forth, right? Like you invested a lot of time to get a few knives in just to M1 her and lose 3 of them. It doesn't really make sense. You know what I mean? What you would ideally want to do is just stick to the knives. You were 2 knives away from a health state, right? Just stick to the knives. Especially because you can throw through this, you could throw over this, right? Like, don't overcomplicate the process, because you wasted a bunch of time to get knives just to get an M1. Now the knives don't matter. Like, you invalidate your own process a little. You don't want to do that. Okay. Really good pathing here to keep her against the wall. I think she doubled back, though. Yep, she did. Now I would not necessarily use... Okay, she's going... Decent hit. Stop holding the button and do more like targeted burst fire. I would click. Every time you're going to throw a knife, I would click the button. I would never hold the button. the more you hold it and the more knives you throw, the more you slow down from 96 to 92% movement speed. And especially with fizz spin, you actually, with the fizz spin soda, because you get a faster initial throw speed, you actually meet your maximum slowdown faster, right? Because when you're Trickster, you start at 96 and then you go down to 92 when you have your knives out. I don't know the exact number, but when you start with the fizz spin soda, like this 96 down to 92 is tied to your how many you're throwing and how fast you're throwing. So if you're throwing, the faster you're throwing, the slower you are. Does that kind of make sense? So, let's take a look here. I would use your knives first. This is a good reload, though. You definitely want to take time to reload between downs. So this is good. It's very smart. Okay, good hook. 1 gen done. So one thing I would encourage you to do is when a gen pops, think about where the survivor's going to go, not where they were. So this gen goes, let's see. So bing, it's done. So this gen goes, where would the survivor go from here? It's unlikely that they would go right for you, and it's pretty unlikely they would go out here towards these hooks, but it's pretty likely they would go towards main building or over here to the side. So as you approach this, you would probably want to take a more curved path that's closer to this and assume that they're going to be sort of here. Like in some cases they could run out here, but that would be an awful idea. And if they do, then be surprised. But never assume that they're going to do a dumb thing. Assume they're going to be smart. And so, you know, where are they going to go? Because you don't like, oh, the gen popped, let me go to the gen. No, you don't want to go to the gen. You're going to go to their next location. So try to keep that in mind. This wasn't like a huge miss or anything, but I could definitely see that you were kind of looking maybe around the gen, and that's maybe a little bit off. Yeah, you notice the scratches. That's good. So here's the thing about this. This is a little bit complicated to explain, but I'm going to try to do it. So here is like main building, okay? And say you see a bunch of scratches out here, and they appear to be leading into the building. As the killer, you don't want to necessarily just follow those in, because what you're doing is giving the survivor time to keep running this way and to get the BT unhook or something like that. So work on like cutting the survivor off. If you suspect that they're going in, there's a few things you could do as the killer. You could just literally just double back. This is a door. So you could double back, cut them off, right? Catch them in the act. And as Trickster, that's something you'd want to do, right? Get a bunch of knives on somebody and down them really quick before they can even make it to the hook. Or if a survivor you suspect is paying attention very well, then you could, you know, go out this way and then fake going in. And you have to be careful with this. But if the survivor is standing here and watching and they see you go back, they might run out, right? So they go, oh, he's going to cut me off. I'm going to go out. Then you would double back. So it's like a game of like, okay, I'm going to double in. Did they see me double in? Let me catch them. If they didn't, if they didn't see you double in, like, or if you go in like this and then you go back out, and they're not there, then proceed with cutting them off. Does that make sense? That's very complicated. But the idea here is like you run out here, you see the scratches, and then you run in to cut them off. Some survivors will dip in here and wait. They'll use their third-person camera to see around the wall and see what you do. And if they see you go in, then they'll go out the opposite direction. What that all means to say is don't let them lead you around. Think ahead and cut them off. So right here, you're kind of just letting them lead you around, and they probably are just going to go straight for that unhook. And you could have lasered them with your knives to get that unhook. Or at the unhook, because I think they probably would have dedicated to it anyway. Again, another missed attempt to use knives. Before she could have got to the pallet, you probably would have hit like the knives required. This is good. This is smart. No point in wasting knives or wasting time when you can get the M1 there. M1s for Trickster are primarily for the down. I don't use M1s for the opening attack often. See how this goes. Good job. You always like before or after the hook, you got to do some cleanup, some due diligence. Break the pallet, get the reload, do whatever you got to do. Right now, you're only 6 knives down, so I wouldn't reload. I think that that's really a smart thing for you to have done. So here's one thing to be aware of. You are taking chase, or potentially, like, you saw some crows fly up, and I think you paid attention to that, potentially, I'm assuming. And then you know the gen's done. The problem is this whole area it means nothing now. There's really no reason to pressure this area because this gen is already done, right? You always want to try to apply pressure where gens aren't done, or chase people where gens aren't done. So I don't know that I would chase out here. I think this is maybe a misplay. Hard to say, though. There's a gen to your right being done. Okay. Good catch. It's a good hit. She already touched the gen and everything, so that's good. I don't know that I would slug her. Getting somebody to stage 2 would be valuable. No! Okay, so I don't know that I would slug her. I'm not sure that I would slug her because, like, getting her to stage 2 is a lot of pressure for this team at 3 gens. Like, that's a big deal. But even then, you did slug her, and then you went for the M1. And I know I've hammered this a few times, but as Trickster, if she's on that gen, 1, 2, 3, 4 knives, especially with the fizz spin, you could get 4 knives before she even moves. And then you get another knife, and she takes the health state. Like, you could have 2 downs within, like, 10 seconds, right? So be very, very aware that with Trickster, knives first. Knives, if you're at a close range, knives first, right? Always knives first. There are some scenarios where you don't want to, but most scenarios you want knives first. She shit the bed there. Whew. That's rough. She tried to get to the nearest pallet she saw, so she may just not know where to be. Really smart idea going back for the Nia. Be very careful. Be very careful. We saw Jake. Like, we saw Jake running up. And I don't know if you were like, oh, Jake doesn't have a flashlight. You should always assume that this nerd, anybody who is running in front of you while you're picking up is going to flashlight save you, or against you. Definitely be very careful, because what's going to happen is there's going to be a 2 or 3 man Swift, and they're going to do this, and I'm going to hear, a Swift last night bullied me and flashlight saved against me 15 times, and it's going to be like, well, you saw Jake. You know what I mean? So be very aware before you pick up. Just literally pause for a moment and go like, let's go back. So literally just pause. Boom, he's right there. In this case, I wouldn't have even gone for him per se, because 2 slugs is good enough pressure that you don't want to necessarily lose. I wouldn't have gone for him. I would have just turned around. Done and done. Easy, you know? So just be very aware. It's not a huge fuck up, because I think he's going to try to just sabo, which is an infinitely bad choice. Awful choice. Yeah, really awful choice. Good hook, though. Yeah, I would just take a second to pause. If that Jake got on the hill and was going to, like, pallet save, he could have got a pallet save there. So just, like, a second pause before picking up. Way more helpful. Do not kick this gen. Okay. This is a waste of time. This is, was it 2.6 seconds of wasted time? This gen's got, like, fucking sub 3%. It's got, like, nothing on it. There's not a reason to kick this thing. Knowing full well they just unhooked, like, literally over here, your body, your 2.6 seconds would be much better placed over there. Yeah, that thing's got, like, no progress. I wouldn't kick that one either. Good job. Okay. Yeah. The best pressure is keeping people off of gens, not kicking gens. This is tough. He's paying attention to the corner. So what this Jake is doing right now is, this is the LT wall. So this is, let me do that in, like, yellow. So this is the L, and then this is the T. What this Jake is actually doing is he's running to the corner, and he's waiting, right? He's waiting here. So he can see both directions where you could come around. And once you go here and then you disappear back, he's just watching you do it. And when you go here and disappear back, he's watching you. And as he's doing that, he's maybe teetering back and forth in this little area, but he's staying away. So the best thing that you could ideally do is force him counterclockwise. So when you're playing as killer, the best thing for you to be able to do is remember that the best way for a survivor to run this would be to vault, run down, vault, run down, vault, run down, right? And that's a clockwise motion. So the best way for you to get the advantage on this killer, or on this survivor, is to go around like this, That's going to force him to come down here and then wait, and then come here and then wait. Right? And as you do that, you'll come down this way, you come down this way, right? And you would like moonwalk around the corners or mind game it so he doesn't see the red light. There's a few things you could do, and I covered this in my how to mind game tutorial for Killer. So you could put yourself right here, so where your red stain is like this. That's going to convince the Jake that, okay, they're coming around the corner, I need to vault. At that point, then you could double back and get the hit. There's all kinds of other mind games you could potentially try. And I'm excited to see how you handle it, but you don't want to give him the clockwise easy escape. Good stuff. He does have a second LT he could take advantage of, but he didn't see that. So you were really close to doing that. So I'm not going to critique you on the fact that you tried. Like, you tried. But just keep working on it being more convincing. Because what didn't really, for me, like if I were the survivor, that didn't connect. Well, this is really close. I would work on showing the red stain more like here and not cutting it off. Because this looks like you're going to double back. If I were the Jake, I would have just gone the other direction. That was a really good attempt, though, and you were super close to getting the hit. You ultimately made enough distance that it didn't matter anyway, so... Good shit. Good mind game. Mind games are hard, and people don't practice them often enough or early enough, so... good shit. Good soup. Gonna get the hook. Not a bad idea to kick the gen. I'm not convinced that somebody has walked away from this area enough to feel... Knives. Knives, knives, knives. Always knives. How did she fuck that up so bad? Good job taking advantage. She messed that up pretty hard. Here's the thing. You want to improve in a way, so like, it looks like you're doing well, and you're certainly, like, you are performing well. You just don't want to rely on survivor mistakes to get you by. If for some reason you got matched with slightly better survivors who didn't make these mistakes, this would have been a 1K, maybe a 2K game. So, the one thing I would say with Trickster, knives. Knives first. It'll make the down so much faster. His TTK is like so much higher than almost any other killer. And you see how earlier kicking that gen that was at like 4% or something, it didn't end up actually mattering in the long run because they were able to sit on this gen and get a lot done. So that's another example of like, I don't know that I would take time to kick gens that hardly have progress. Oh, yeah, that's a Jill. That is a Jill. The good news is, so I will say, like I said, the one thing you're doing really well is you know when to kick a gen. For the most part, you're not stopping mid-chase to kick it or something like that, which is really, really good. A lot of people do that, and that's awful. Stage 2. Somebody's on your left. You used your ears there. Good job listening. She's behind you, though. You fucked up. Oh, you fucked up. All right, let's go back. So that was really good initially. Like, you heard somebody, but then you didn't hear that they were behind you. I'm going to turn it up just a little bit so you guys can kind of hear that. Yeah, she was behind you the whole time. So what ended up happening is it's actually fucking kind of crazy how it works. So this is the entire hill, right? And then this is the generator. She left scratch marks all the way up, and then she literally just hid right next to the generator. And then you, as the Trickster, went up the hill and dropped down and went this way. So she just stayed on the gen. She stopped it from regressing, and I guarantee in the next few seconds she's going to go get the unhook. And then that gen's going to pop in your face. So just getting used to more directional hearing and listening will help a lot. I would keep using knives here. Yeah, I would not put the knives away per se. No, use your knives here. You're so scared of using knives. It scares me. They are running right into you. Yeah, they're definitely handing you the dub here. Death hook. I wouldn't chase up here. This is a nightmare place to chase. Honestly, with the gens they have having so much progress, I would never chase up here. That's not a good idea. This part of the map is killer. Just keep in mind for Ironworks, don't come up here as killer. It's not worth it. Almost ever. It's so irritating. There he is. Knives. Knives, knives, knives. Knives, knives. Knives, knives. Knives, knives. Okay, look. So the one thing you could do as Trickster is just like with Plague, you can body block somebody. He was in the corner. You could have just been like, what up, baby? And then got a bunch of knives on him and just downed him right there. Or you know, hit 7 knives or 6 knives and then switch to your bat instantly down. So yeah, we're just underutilizing the ability. Which I don't know if it's better than overutilizing the ability, because I mean, this is more effective than not, but... So I would slow down. It looks like what you're kind of doing is holding the button. I would not hold the button. So this is me personally. This comes from like my experience with playing like first-person shooters. I don't hold the button because you notice the kick and the way he like the jerk of the camera way more. Aim and fire, or fire 1-2 and do like these burst rounds, and I think you'll be more accurate and more aware than just holding it and trying to like line it up and make it work. Like aim, fire 1 or 2, aim, fire 1 or 2. And remember, these are projectiles, so you do have to aim a little bit ahead of where the survivor is, depending on their distance from you. The further they are, the more ahead you have to aim to account for the travel distance for the item. So you're not doing bad. I would definitely just be more intentional with the knives, which you're not just wasting them and throwing like 40 knives for nothing, which is good. This is just the next step. Yeah, because you're just holding the button. So I would be a little bit more careful with just holding it like that. You have to down with him, though. And that's the building blocks, right? That's where you got to start. So it's not bad. This is a very... I have a feeling they'll get the last gen done, and No Way Out will actually be the thing that kind of saves you a little bit. 44 knives. This is your moment. This is your moment to use the knives! Do not be scared of the ability. You have to use it to get used to it. Luckily, this Meg is just... Aiming with controller is difficult. It is, but you'll never get better if you never do it. You know? Yeah, I would say 90% of your downs were just M1s. So if you're trying to work on Trickster specifically, work on Trickster. Like, work on using that ability. And you're probably going to fuck it up before you get better. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But you got to be willing to make that concession. If you're on console playing Trickster, try to strafe more than aim. But also, the same rules apply. Throw 1 or 2 knives at a time. Don't hold the button. It becomes very difficult to control if you're just holding the button down. Okay, so not bad. It worked out in your favor, but a lot of it was like there were mistakes made by you and there were mistakes made by the survivor, and luckily the survivors made more, right? And they were worse. So yeah, the big thing I would pay attention to is just using your knives. If you're going to continue to play Trickster, you got to use them. You got to use them when you're close. Using them when they're 10 meters away, 15 meters away, and about to round a corner is not the time to use them. You want to use them when they're close. You want to get close and then just make it so that you can get that fast down, right? And it's going to take practice, but you got to use them to get practice, right? Like you're not going to wake up one day and magically know how to do it. You're going to have to fucking miss a lot of shots before you start hitting them. And then the other thing is just listening, just getting more like tuned into what you're hearing around you, and fine tuning those. I think there's a lot of fine tuning that needs to happen, right? I think you have pretty solid fundamentals. I would consider looking more at the 3 gen and where the gens are that you need to defend and doing stuff like that. pathing, right, cutting survivors off, but I think you have really good foundational skills. Like you're trying mind games, you're listening, you're doing a lot of stuff that a lot of people don't do, right? You're getting there. It's just a matter of building that stuff. But with Trickster, you can't be scared. You got to use the knives. Otherwise, he's a 110 killer that has like less, lethality than Huntress. So, so all that being said, I think I'm going to use this one for a YouTube video because I think a lot of people want to learn how to play Trickster and keep playing Trickster. So, and I liked that match. I think you did a great job. I want to highlight again.